Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for February 27th. Can you please all rise if you can for the pledge. Madam Clerk, can you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk.
Announcements. This is a time for board members and county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public.
Any announcements from the board?
I would like to make one. Mr. Chair, one quick announcement. I want to shout out to the folks in our road maintenance department up in the Arnold area. We had a pretty severe storm over the last 2 days, pretty icy conditions, and they jumped right on that. And I just want to publicly acknowledge that the road department up there and Scott Anderson on the Public Works did a great job. Excellent.
Any other announcements?
I first of all want to say welcome to a couple Cal OES staff who were in the audience probably for this first part. But I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce and welcome Michelle Patterson, who, if you want to stand up, Michelle, do a little wave. She had to bring, apparently her peeps with her to. But anyway, Michelle's coming to us to serve as the OES director. Mr. Downs, who was here for a short time, did return to New Mexico in January. We were very excited that when we did the recruitment, we had a very strong list of applicants, and more excited that Michelle was still interested. So thank you very much. We're very happy to have you on board, and welcome.
And in case everybody didn't know, our county council, Megan Stedfeld, and her husband had a new baby boy by the name of Reed. So congratulations to both of them. All right, Madam Clerk.
Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Just can you move back a little bit? There you go. That's fine. No more than 5 standing at one time in a row. Okay, Carl.
Thank you for looking after my safety, I guess. Good morning, Board of Supervisors, and good morning, County. As many of you know, my primary interest these days is the West Point Community Hall. I had a fantastic meeting with Patrick Martin, who's a facilities manager, on Friday, and we went through the hall, and we saw the deficiencies. And we also saw that the hall was structurally sound. It's just an absolutely gorgeous hall in its framework. But the problem we have with it right now is it's uninsulated, and this wall board is less than a 1/4 inch thick. And this suffices for drywall or lath and plaster or tongue and groove as the interior siding. It's not very. It's considered a fire hazard. We have Bill from the West Point Fire Department here who can attest to that. And we need this replaced. We need insulation, and we need the wall board replaced with something that is aesthetically as well as pleasing as well as safe. I know that the board has had conflicts in the past, but I think this is a good time to give Jack something to do with his time. This is something that will not get you recalled, working on the community hall and trying to get, yeah, sorry, Jack, and trying to get the community and the county behind you. And I know that the other 4 board members would love to give you something to do with your time, other than, you know, what you have been doing. So I asked other 4 board members at some point to get behind Jack on this, and to make the resources, the county's resources, available. I'll do everything within my power to make the let's say corporate. I'll go out there and beat the bushes for some of the things that aren't necessities, but, you know, chandeliers or whatever they might need. But as far as structural and safety improvements, that's the county's responsibility. And you do have the money. So, well, I have a little more than 30 seconds, and I want to talk to you about the general plan really quick. It's not going to be coming before you, the board, until after the 1st of next year, so you won't have it in time for the election, so it's not going to be an election issue. I want you to talk to Peter and ask him about the timeline on it, so you guys are informed regarding this. Somebody in the audience said I have plenty of time to go to meetings. I like to be first up here and speak and get out of here, because I don't have plenty of time. I have to work on things that I enjoy. Take care, folks, and have a great day. Bye, people.
Good morning. My name is Les Olson, and I live at 2294 Taos Court up in Arnold. We are a neighborhood in Arnold of approximately 245 tax-paying cabins and 192 full-time residents, to the best of our knowledge. We have formed a committee because we're not an HOA, because we believe there are life-threatening public safety issues that are in need of addressing. We are calling ourselves the Blue Lake Springs Unit 14, 15, and 16 Community Action Committee, because nobody wanted an HOA. Additionally, we are seeking to become an advisory committee to the Calaveras County for Road Maintenance Program. We have 2 main issues we would like to address. One is the urgent repair of the Murphy's Drive Bridge. The second is the ability for ingress of emergency vehicles and egress of residents on Avery Drive in case of an extreme emergency. It is our goal to become an agendized item on a future supervised meeting. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jane Olson, and I am a member of the committee that he just spoke about. I also live at 2294 Taos Court in Arnold, and we have written a petition and are gathering signatures currently, which we hope to present at a future board meeting and hope to be on the agenda. Murphy's Drive Bridge is a critical transportation and public safety link between the surrounding communities and the 317 lots housing 192 full-time residents of Calaveras County Units 14, 15, 16 in Blue Lake Springs. In the winter of 2017, a serious storm destroyed this county-maintained bridge, leaving these households and emergency vehicles with only a single ingress and egress route to use in case of a major emergency. This bridge/road closure creates an unacceptable risk to health and safety and is a life-threatening situation for these tax-paying residents of Calaveras County. We ask that Calaveras County representatives, FEMA, and related agencies prioritize this repair, which has now waited for over a year to be addressed, and expedite the process of funding, permitting, design, and construction of the Murphy's Drive Bridge as soon as possible to mitigate the consequences in case of a life-threatening disaster, with no real evacuation route that will work well, if at all, for both emergency vehicles and the evacuation of souls in that part of Calaveras County.
Good morning. My name is Joyce Perandi, and I'm a permanent resident at 2191 Grand Tetons in Arnold. I am part of the committee for Blue Lake Springs. I would like to address the longstanding issue of the Avery Drive bottleneck. The widening of Avery Drive is imperative to allow and facilitate the critical ingress and egress by emergency vehicles and the safe evacuation of residents during an emergency. Currently, I have 107 signatures on this petition concerning residents who are upset and want this resolved. Do you realize, as of today, we do not have an option? We have one way in and one way out. In case of a fire or an emergency, this is a disastrous situation. Let's make this a safe route. Let's get this topic on the agenda for the next possible meeting. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lawrence Perandi. I'm a full-time resident at 2191 Grand Tetons Drive in Arnold, and I'm also a member of the same committee units 14, 15, and 16. Our Community Action Committee of Blue Lake Springs feel that the Murphy's Bridge, and Avery Drive issue should be given top priority because it is a life-threatening situation. Due to this, the tax-paying residents of this community don't understand why it's been more than a year and the bridge still hasn't been repaired. This is unacceptable, folks. This should be made a priority over all non-life-threatening issues that are currently on the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors agenda today. And I repeat, all non-life-threatening issues on your agenda. We understand the hurdles this presents, but however, the safety of our residents is imperative that this issue may be made a priority, expedited and resolved as soon as possible. Due to the seriousness of this issue, we are asking to be added to the agenda for the next meeting. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Board. Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I'm going to tell you a Double Springs story, not from the 1800s, but from the 1900s, because the 1800 ones, too much detail I'd have to leave out. I moved here in the early 70s, and the best resource I ever found was my next-door neighbors, Bessie and Everett Parrish, in their 70s, and they imparted any wisdom that they had whenever they could. One time we were talking over the fence, and my neighbor Everett goes, "There's a lot of color in that branch yet." And I'm standing there, I'm looking, and well, it's springtime, but there must be some autumn colors somewhere that I'm looking at. And I said, "Now, which branch you talking about, Everett?" And he goes, "That one over yonder." And so I said, "Well, maybe he means higher, over the creek. I'm looking up the hill. I can't see any colors. It's all green." And I said, "Well, like where, Everett?" And he says, "Over there in that creek." Creek. Does he mean creek? In the creek. So now I'm looking down on the creek, and I say, "I still don't see any color in the creek." And he says, "Well, you don't see it. You got to go dig it. Then you got to pan it." And I said, "Are you talking about gold?" And he said, "Yeah, color in that branch, gold in the creek." When I first moved here, I had to learn a whole new way of talking in order to get along. I had to gear down. I come from LA. I was on Double Springs. There's gold in that branch over there if I just took the time to go and look and listen. And I find that there's a lot of gold all over the place if we just take the time to slow down, listen, ask, find out. There's gold in that branch. There's color in that crick. It's there for us to find. Thank you.
Good morning, Board. Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. You know, you really shouldn't have to have a bunch of citizens come here and lobby you to fix a bridge. Maybe we need to agendize the road situation in our county. It might be a good idea to identify the roads in our county that need repair and to what level they need repair, and also to identify the priority of fixing things in the public works area. I understand we've hired somebody to review public works activities for the purpose of improving efficiency. Maybe if we have that report, we should study it. And if we don't have it, let's indicate when we're going to get it, and then agendize this item to address the whole situation in the county for roads. They need to identify the roads that we have, schedule repairs, and prioritize which would come first, and then provide sunshine of what you're doing. That would prevent people from having to come here and try to lobby you to put something on a higher priority as something else. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm in Supervisor Mills' district. I hope you're all having a great morning. I'm here again to discuss my request for the agendized item of Sanctuary City. I'm not talking very well. Sanctuary County. I think it's really important. 2 weeks ago, I did ask that we put the Sanctuary City on an agenda. And then the following week, President Trump said that he was thinking about pulling ICE and some of the, support that he gives us. And I really think that if we have the political will and back him up, I mean, this could be really serious. We need to think about public safety first. So I'm asking you again to please put Sanctuary on your agenda. I thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Good morning. Mary Beth Hospital, Cal Ways Community Outreach Coordinator. I'm here this morning to give you guys an update on the recyclables fee that's paid back to the county through our contract. I just want to give you a recap. The fourth quarter of 2016, it actually was just 1 month. That is when our contract was renewed with the county. We gave a recyclables check back for $20,371. The first quarter of 2017, we gave a check back for $56,600. The second quarter of 2017, we gave a check of $57,816. And today I'm here to present the third quarter check of 2017 for $78,102. The grand total that we have given back to the county today will be $212,893. And as you can see, the market value was obviously low that last part of 2016, and it started to increase. The markets are like any other market, huge crisis in China right now, so the markets are very low right now and depressed. So just to give you guys an update on that, these numbers look good now, but these were 2017. So we'll be back, I think May, and we will present the check for the last quarter of 2017. We pay in the rears. The contract states that we'll give 90% of the market value of the recyclables back to the county. So,
hey, hang on a second. Hang on.
hang on.
Dave, can you come up? Can you come up to the podium? And the CAO will come down, and you want to present the check to the CAO.
Mm-hmm. A picture. Oh, a picture.
That's going to be on the World Wide Net.
World Wide Net.
That internet thing seems to be sticking around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, can I just speak real briefly to issue that Mary Beth touched on? And that's there's a crisis right now in the recycling markets, and it's all due really to our relationship with China and their position on the World Accord that they signed in Paris here a while back. They are not taking a lot of mixed waste paper right now because of contamination that they're just not going to tolerate. They've taken their contamination level from down from 5% to 0.5% because there was so much foul material that was going there. They've really cut off a good part of the marketplace right now. So we have a warehouse full of mixed paper that we continue to try to market. It's not a political issue. It's not something we can solve here locally. This is a world market. And, it's right here, and it's affecting us right here in Calaveras County as, world trade. And we'll do all we can to keep those markets open and try and find other sources in China and Vietnam and hopefully some domestic markets here in the United States. But, we're dealing with this and doing the best we can as not only as Cal Waste, but as an industry. We're lobbying and we're trying to, get some relief here locally. So that's my update, and I hope you make some good decisions with your newfound money, that maybe some of it will go back to some education programs as well. So I encourage you to move forward on that when you have a chance. Thank you, and appreciate your time.
Good morning. Cliff Edson, San Andreas. As you can see, solid waste is not just some simple little thing, because we got a hole out in Rock Creek that people can drive and dump their garbage in. Even the terminology has changed so much now. This county has, about 4 or 5 years ago, was in some serious issues with the state because of our solid waste facility. There's a certain percentage of recyclables that have to not go in it, and which also gives us the ability to use it longer because it doesn't fill up as quickly. And thanks to Cal Waste, when they came in, they're all about programs and education. And they also, I don't know if you guys know this, but they have hired folks to go out to the schools and teach the children about recycling and about solid waste and the whole business. Now, Dave got into something I didn't even know about, world markets. So that's how big it is. We're blessed that he stepped up, I think, into the county to be able to help us out with that. Otherwise, we would be paying a $10,000 fine every single day for not meeting standards. So at the end of what Dave said was related to education, and I am hopeful that you consider that, putting some of this money back into education, into the schools, because we can continue to fill up this hole that we have for garbage and spend extra money because they have to separate things there. And we are also scrutinized by the state, or we could teach the young people and invest in some of these young folks and show them the right way, so that when they get my age or they get into adult life, they can make the right decision on what to do, which is the savings over the long run for us. So please consider that. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Any board member wish to pull any item? Any staff member? Mr. Krovitz.
Number 1.
Item number 1. Any other staff member?
Number 5.
Number 5.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to pull item number 2. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to you sooner.
Okay. Any other board member or staff member? Not anyone from the public? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion for the remainder.
Move the remainder, Mr. Chair.
A motion by Supervisor Mills. Have a second?
Second.
A second by Supervisor Garamendi. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 1. Mr. Krovitz, Public Works.
Item number 1 is from Public Works. To make findings that paratransit service in response to request for proposals 17-1021-01958 for the operation of Calaveras Transit has been determined to be responsive, responsible, and qualified to perform the services outlined in the RFP. Award RFP 17-1021-01958 for the management and operation of Calaveras Transit to the sole qualified respondent, Paratransit Services, and authorize the Board of Supervisors Chair to execute a professional services agreement with Paratransit Services for the term of April 2nd, 2018 through March 31st, 2019, with an option to extend an additional 2 years.
Thank you. I pulled this item because the time frame that we had for the award did not allow sufficient time for us to get an executed contract in front of you. The hitch in this particular giddy-up is the amount of time it will take Paratransit Services to gear up to take on the maintenance of our bus fleet. They've informed us late last week that they need 45 days instead of immediate turnover, so that means they can't begin maintaining the fleet until the middle of April. What I'm asking to do is to table this item today and continue it to the 13th, whereupon we will have a complete agreement that we can discuss, and hopefully the board can vote on it to allow this contract to go into place as scheduled on April the 2nd. Questions?
Any board questions?
Mr.
Supervisor
Chair.
Oliveira?
Mr. Krovitz, this delay, was it anticipated by Paratransit, or will this contract be going forth if the COG takes over Paratransit or takes over our transit system?
The contract was, or the RFP was written to allow the management of this contract to be with the county or with whatever entity would take over transit, and in this case it would be the JPA that was passed by this board at the last board hearing.
Correct.
So the contract fully anticipated that transition, and the only issue was the amount of time we had with the number of reviews to be able to make sure that Paratransit had the ability to take on the maintenance of the fleet.
So Paratransit, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't they actually one of our contractors in the past?
They are our current contractor,
Right.
and have been for the last 6 years, I believe, or 7 years. So they were actually they're the only respondent to the request for proposals that we got.
I remember that too. Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Mills?
Yeah, the only thing I might note here is the actual agreement was missing, and I appreciate the CAO getting that to me so we can review it. Whenever we see an agreement, I'd like to see the actual agreement as part of the agenda packet.
I thought it was attached. We will make sure that it is attached before your next board agenda item.
Thank you.
Any other board questions? Not? Any public comments or questions? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Looking for a motion to table this item.
Motion to lay aside.
I have a motion by Supervisor Mills. Do I have a second?
Second.
Turn your mic off. Thank you. We got, okay, so I have a second by Supervisor Clapp.
Yes.
Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're going to take a 5-minute break here in order to fix.
Hello. No, it's been doing that even the last time you were here.
All right, we're back. Can we turn on your mic, Supervisor Clapp, and see if can you speak? Say.
I don't know if I've been taught that yet.
Okay, we're good. All right. Madam Clerk, moving on to item number 2 that was pulled by Supervisor Oliveira.
Item 2 is from the Sheriff's Department to authorize the sheriff to sign an interagency agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice Drug Enforcement Administration for illegal cannabis eradication from October 1, 2017 through September 30, 2018 in an amount not to exceed $45,000.
Mr. Oliveira.
Thank you. Captain.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming over. I understand you were given a little notification on this. My issue with this is due to the previous meetings we've had regarding issues and enforcement. I'd like to have just an explanation of how come we're receiving these federal funds. Is it an ongoing grant or special donation or whatever it is? Could you explain that for us, just for the public?
Sure. The Domestic Cannabis Eradication Program is ongoing funding we've been receiving for several years. We have to apply each and every year. It's not guaranteed. The expenditures are, in fact, restricted, and the restrictions are noted clearly within the packet. I was coming down here to pull this item as well because we received some potentially good news. However, I was hesitant and waiting to bring that up because the money, sorry for the bad pun or analogy, is not in the bank yet. But we did receive a couple of phone calls that they're looking at potentially a significant increase in funding. I won't say doubling the amount we're asking for, but it does sound like they may be able to double the amount we received last year. The sheriff's been working hard on the phone, trying to explain the situation Calaveras County is in as it relates to marijuana. So we have been in contact with DEA, made a request for additional funding, and we're hoping that comes forward. So I did want to ask that the item be pulled just to notify the board that we may have to come back with an amendment for additional funding.
Excellent. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Supervisor Mills, you have a question?
Just to be sure, then we're still falling in the same fiscal year. We're not moving it beyond the fiscal year. That this was through September of 2018.
Correct.
So we're not changing that if there was increased funding.
Well, we need to get this approved so we can start expending funds. As it relates to when the money comes in, I don't know. We had this conversation with DEA approximately a month ago. I've had 1 or 2 subsequent conversations with them. The term for the expenditures, I'll clarify that with them when I speak with them, but depending on when that funding comes in is when we'll be able to start expending the funds. But we wanted to get to the board early because, as you know, we start our eradication season early as well, and we wanted to be able to utilize the DEA funding if it was practical or reasonable in a given case.
Thank you.
No, so, Captain, it's your position that the board approve this agenda item. I heard that you wanted to pull it. I wanted to make sure we're doing the right thing.
I just wanted to pull it to notify the board. What I didn't want to do is have the board vote on this and me have the information I had that we could potentially be getting additional funding and not notify the board. So I do want the board to go ahead and vote on the matter, but I did want the entire board as well as the CAO's office to understand, and the public for that matter, that we may be coming back with some potentially good news with an increase in funding.
All right. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Chair.
CAO, you had?
I was just going to provide one bit of clarity on the September 30 because it is a federal grant. It coincides with federal fiscal years. So that's, it's sometimes it can be a blessing and a curse on when they do that, because you have a little bit of overlap into the next fiscal year, but it also makes closing out grants a little more challenging when you end it at the federal fiscal year.
And I was thinking of zero-based budgeting, what fiscal year is it in, and when did you receive it, when do you expend it? So that's another challenge for us. Thank you.
Supervisor Oliveira, your light's on. You have more comments?
If there's no further discussion, I'd so move.
Well, we got to give public chance. So.
Okay.
Is there any public comments? Questions?
Gina Gonzalez, Angels Camp. I would like to, in my heart of hearts, say thank you for trying to get this funding. This is necessary for us to move forward in this county. And I have a question. Would this funding have been available if we had not created a ban? And when you apply for this funding, is this funding presented with a cost analysis of some kind of eradication costs? And that's it. Thank you.
To answer the question, the funding is available irrespective of the ban. However, based upon Calaveras County's semi-unique situation with what we've done locally with political governing bodies, we utilized that information when we made the application towards DEA. We explained Calaveras County's situation. In addition, there is a cost plan put together prior to the application, which is broken down. It's contained within the packet with which we utilize the funding. Historically, we used to utilize the funding specifically towards eradicating marijuana on federal lands because it was federal funding. However, based upon law changes both locally and at the state level, a lot of the marijuana that was being cultivated on federal lands was driven onto private lands. So our focus had to slightly change. So we now we try to utilize the DEA money for domestic cannabis eradication on federal lands, but we also have shifted a portion of that money to local lands, specific to cases that may leave Calaveras County and go elsewhere beyond the state. I won't get into a lot of specific details, but there's also some helicopter use that we utilize heavily during the marijuana season. So there's a spending plan put together. If we receive additional funds, we've already met internally and had a meeting to discuss how to utilize the extra funds. So there is a plan in place now, and there's a potential plan for the future should in fact the additional funding materialize.
Thank you, Captain. Any other public comments? If not, I'll bring it back to the board now for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
A motion by Supervisor Oliveira. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mills. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk.
Item 5 is from the Administrative Office to adopt a resolution designating certain individuals in the Calaveras County Office of Emergency Services as authorized officials to execute applications and documents for financial assistance provided by the Federal Department of Homeland Security.
Good morning, Brian Moss, Administrative Office. What you have before you today is just as stated into the record. We intended to go ahead and get the signature authority for the CAO, the Assistant CAO, and the Director of OES for Homeland Security funds. What came up last week was the fact that we really need to do this, even though we've done it in part for the state, we need to do this for other grants as well at Cal OES. So what we've done is we've added language, and really the language is under the very end of the resolution. Now therefore it be resolved, and I'll just read that to you and then I'll tell you what the addition is. By the Board of Supervisors, County of Calaveras, State of California, do hereby designate and duly authorize individuals holding the position titles of CAO, Assistant CAO, and Director of OES as authorized officials to execute any actions necessary for the purposes of obtaining federal financial assistance provided by the Department of Homeland Security, including any funds subgranted through the state of California. That is in your packet. What the addition is today is and or any state disaster assistance directly from Cal OES, and that's the simple change, but it allows the three positions to go ahead and sign those docs for not only federal but state grants. And I have made extra copies here for the public. Should they have any questions, I'll leave them on the podium.
Any board questions? Yes, Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you. Brian, let me ask a question. In a statement that says officials to execute any actions necessary, that's about as broad as you could possibly get. Maybe you could break that down a little bit for us, what you mean by any. Certainly we don't want to do anything illegal or improper, so any is...
Well, and any time we're going to apply for federal or state grants, most of the time, I should say, really, we're going to come to the board for authorization to apply for those funds, whether they be Homeland Security, whether they be EMPG, emergency response, and the like. What this does is it allows, once the board has executed the agreement, it allows for either the CAO, the assistant CAO, or your director of OES to sign. So it's not something that would be done in a vacuum by any means. The board would be aware of what we're doing. It's just a process by which when Cal OES contacts us and says, we received your grant application, however, the person signing this doesn't have signatory authority. Really, that's what we're taking care of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. What's our situation now? Obviously, we don't have that situation. Who's been signing those?
Up till the departure of Mr. Downs, it was the CAO, myself, and William Downs. What this will allow, instead of putting names on, instead of saying Timothy Lutz, Brian Moss, or William Downs, and of course now Michelle Patterson, it'll say CAO, Assistant CAO, and Director of OES. So although we certainly all want to be here and don't see that a problem, I think we kind of pigeonholed ourselves a little bit beforehand by doing name. Now it's no longer name, it's by title.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Thank you, Chair.
Any other board questions? If not, I'll open up public questions, comments.
First, thank you for a good presentation on this item. One of the concerns that the taxpayers have is the strings that are attached to money that comes from the federal government, and for that matter, the state government. One of the things that we'd like to see, if possible, is to have full sunshine on any requirements, especially requirements that may affect the life, liberty, and property of citizens in Calaveras County. There could be restrictions during the cleanup the Butte fire. I understand the federal government wanted to have the county confiscate property from people who had lost their homes for the purpose of hazard waste or something, and that was turned down by our supervisors at that time. But this sort of thing needs to be in sunshine, and the taxpayers need to be aware of any strings that are attached to money that comes from the federal government as to its effect on our rights of the citizens. Thank you.
Marty Crane. I do try to pay attention. I've been waiting for a call from Mr. Downs. Apparently he's not here. And yeah, well, what happened? I think, could you please explain that? I understand someone else is here, but it was like he just breezed through. It was wonderful when he was here. He was the first one to ever say, hey, we're gonna organize everything. We're gonna get our emergency preparedness together. And I just got to say, it's the first time any any emergency operations official ever thought, we could use volunteers, we could engage the community, let's call the volunteer center. So what happened?
Okay, I will start with Mr. Segala. As far as things being done, certainly in the sunshine, as he stated, that is certainly our intent as well, and it's been our process as well. Now, again, we all know that it depends on whether it's a federal declaration or a state declaration or both. Usually it'd be a state declaration, and sometimes we get the federal declaration in addition to that in the case of Butte Fire, in the case of winter storms. We didn't get that with tree mortality. So depending on what kind of declaration it is, it depends on what the county's cost of share is. So the board actually approved an item today allowing us to apply for CDAA reimbursement through CAL FIRE. Okay, so the way I can explain this is tree mortality is a state grant, okay? 75% cost to the state, 25% cost to the county. In this case, the governor's office said we're going to put monies into the budget where jurisdictions affected by tree mortality can actually go ahead and apply for additional funds. In this case, I don't have that in front of me right now, that staff report. Let me take a look. $679,196 to help offset that 25% cost of share. So each and every grant is a little bit different. Our cost of share for Butte Fire is 6.25%. Okay. So with that said, I would like to assure the public and the board that we try to do this all above board. Everybody knows what's going on. Now, understanding that dynamics do change from time to time, and I think what Mr. Segala was talking about was probably naturally occurring arsenic, which was a hiccup in the Butte Fire cleanup process. But I think that was resolved as well. Moving on to...
I can answer the second one, Brian, for you
sure.
if you'd like.
Go ahead.
And I apologize, Marty. We did do a press release after Mr. Downs left. It might not have been picked up as widely. We were trying to get his messages. And, you know, it was unfortunate circumstances. It's hard when somebody relocates from a different state, coming from state level. It was we were sad to see him go, but understood his reasons for needing to go. I will say, though, I think with Michelle's background, particularly with public health and emergency preparedness, that she is also very focused on how we engage and train our volunteers. So I don't think we'll lose momentum there.
So how we train and use our volunteers is great, but I want us to really think about the value of the community, individually and collectively.
Marty, you had your time to speak. One time you spoke. So
I'm just speaking to why he's gone.
You had your time. You had one time. You had one spot. Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any board discussion? Supervisor Oliveira?
No discussion, Mr. Chair, but I would offer a motion.
I have a motion by Supervisor Oliveira. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Garamendi. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
We're moving on to the regular agenda. Madam Clerk?
Could we take just a very quick 5-minute break to allow for the PowerPoint presentation to be set up? Thank you.
Diane, do we possibly?
All right, we're back. Madam Clerk.
Okay, so if you push your button. There you go. Okay, item 5. Item 5.
No, item 10.
I'm sorry, item 10.
Regular
That's where
agenda.
we are. We're on item 10. Item 10 is from the Board of Supervisors to receive an update from the 39th Agricultural District regarding the county fair and fairgrounds.
Good morning, Board, and thank you for having me. I'm Lori Giannetti, if you don't know me, and I have the privilege of being the CEO at the 39th District Agricultural Association, other names, Frogtown, the Calaveras County Fairgrounds. And before I get started, I want to give a shout out to some of our partners that are here in the room. Our presenting sponsor, which is Cal Waste, they're here. The Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce, the Calaveras County Cannabis Association, and AMA is also here, along with representatives from the Calaveras County Sheriff's Department, all very key partners. Our goal today is to maybe give you a little bit of history that you don't know. Some of you know it, or you've seen this presentation before, and then to let you know, it's important to let you know where we've been and then also where we're going. So we'll go ahead and get started. Abraham Lincoln said that agricultural fairs are becoming an institution of the country. They are useful in more ways than one. They bring us together and therefore make us better acquainted and better friends than we otherwise would have been. And that was in 1859. And so that was at the Wisconsin State Fair. And so even then, the importance of county fairs was recognized. And I believe that our fair today has that same spirit, where one of our goals is for people to come and just feel like they're with their neighbors. We are corny, we are a hokey, and I'll sell that all day long, because people today need that. They need to walk in someplace and feel like maybe they've stepped back in time a little bit, and everybody's friendly, and so that's part of who we are. We are the 39th District Agricultural Association. We're part of the Department of Food and Agriculture. We're governed by a 9-person board of directors that is appointed by the governor of the state. We are a non-funded state agency. And our board's mission is to provide a quality, events-oriented facility operated in a sound financial manner for the benefit of the people of Calaveras County. Here's a list of our board of directors. Gay Callan, she's from Esmeralda Valley. If you don't know where that is, that's where Angels Camp becomes San Andreas down Dogtown Road. Taliba Al-Rafiq, she's our board vice president, McCollum Hill Mountain Ranch. Bob Trincaro, immediate past president. Kathy Campbell's from San Andreas. Evan Garamendi, McCollum Hill. Gloria Grimes, West Point, Wilseyville. Darren Mills, Murphys. Steve Wooster, Copperopolis. This is the first time this particular board of directors where I feel the governors did a very good job geographically to represent our county. We have a board liaison, Tim Follendorf, and he's our operations liaison, and he's from Angels Camp. Our history, our earliest fair dates back to 1893, and we actually have those minutes in our safe at the fairgrounds. So we are one of the longest events in the state. Interesting facts about the fair of 1893, it was held in Copperopolis. So the property as we know it now as Frogtown didn't exist, and they would send it out to bid, and according to the minutes, they were looking for inducements, whatever that's supposed to mean. And so there was some things. There had to be lodging. There had to be a horse track. That was super important. And that first fair was funded by our board of directors at that time, and each board member put up $450. In today's money, that's about $25,000. Just so you know, I asked my board, they said no. And it was held in the fall, and fairs were often held in the fall because produce was ready then. Then in 1865, Mark Twain wrote The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. In 1928, Angels Camp held our first, what we call our modern day frog jump. That first frog jump, the frog jumped 3 feet. And there was a reason for that because everybody gathered around. And it was actually on a table. And I got this information from a recording I have by Whiskers Bill. That was his name, honest. And he was actually at that first frog jump. And in 1938, it folded into the fair, and then it moved to May. The frog jump was a spring event, and the fair was a fall event. It kind of went back and forth, but eventually it settled on the third weekend in May. This is actually a photo of when it was in Angels Camp. This is actually from our family photos, my husband's family. My father-in-law, who's not with us anymore, he was born in 1909. He actually always referred to it as the Jubilee. That's what they called it. There wasn't a fair or frog jump in 1933 because of the Depression. And so some other key historical dates. In 1940, we had our first fair manager. C.T. Mills stepped off the board and became our first fair manager. Interesting, Darren Mills, who serves on our boards today, that is his great-great-grandfather. 1943, we were part of the post-war building program. If you've seen our buildings, that makes sense to you. 1943. 1950s, the fair and the frog jump started receiving national recognition. In 62, our barns and our airstrip was built. The airstrip was really key for the rodeo that was to come. The airstrip is still there. We actually today have livestock camping on it. And what you know as the ranch house was actually the hangar. In 1971, there was what we call trouble in paradise. That's when we had the trouble with the Hells Angels. 1986, Lee Judici and Rosie the Riveter set the world's record, which is 21 feet, 5 3/4 inches, and it still holds today. In 91, the first woman CEO is hired. In 2006, this is where it's not as pleasant history. Our fair begins to run in the red. And in 2008, we had a carnival ride collapse. But as Calaveras County, when somebody, family is in crisis or our community's in crisis, often great things are born from that. And what was born from that ride collapse and our trouble was Friends of the Fair. Friends of the Fair is our 501c3, our foundation arm. They have done wonderful things, and they were actually born out of that turbulent time. In 2010, the fair ended the year with a 24% reserve. And in 2011, the state cut all funding. We were partially funded. We got a little bit of funding, but in 2011, all that funding went away. Not only did our funding go away, our other perks or help we got from the division. There used to be a huge division at fairs and expositions. It went down to 2 people as part of the governor's cuts. And so they used to pay for our audit. They paid our unemployment insurance. There was major maintenance plans where you could get help with the facility. All of that went away. And then in 2011, I also became the CEO. Good timing for me. But then in 2012, we did end the year with a positive reserve, a small one, but we had gone from negative 24 to a positive 6% in the period of 2 years with no funding from the state. How did we do that? We had a brave and dedicated board of directors, people who were willing to make the tough decisions and the hard decisions, and they did it. We have a community who wasn't going to let the fair go away, that wasn't going to let this tradition from 1893 just go. Friends of the Calaveras County Fair, I can't say enough about how important they are. They actually started working hand in hand with our DA board of directors and have accomplished many things. Some of the things they have accomplished is the ranch house, underground power, new roofs, sewer repairs, equipment for maintenance, vehicles for maintenance, road repairs, and much more. That's a picture of Gladys Dillashaw, and she actually retired from volunteering this year. And she's been with the fair for a really long time. I just love that photo of her. Some ways that Friends of the Fair make their money. They have a pot of gold raffle, where you can win $10,000 on Sunday night, and Thursday, Friday, and Saturday you can win $1,000. They also raffle off the opportunity to drive a derby car. Yes, if that's on your bucket list, you can do that there. They also competitively bid our alcohol concessions. So we are a state agency, so it's not like I can just call them up and say, I want you to serve alcohol. They had to go through the entire bid process just like anybody else would. These are just some fun photos. This is Mark Fisher when he is an exhibitor, and he's actually an auctioneer for us now. That's the little boy with the fishing pole is one of our board of directors, and that's a former director, Doug Josie, on the with holding that squatty steer. Okay, September 2015, and this was a couple of years ago, but this is just something to remember. Fairgrounds, in response to the Butte fire, becomes a catastrophic event center, and we all learned so much from this. And the reason I want to bring this up is because from our experience, you know, as I choose to live my life, good always comes from bad. We debriefed with a lot of folks. We had meetings with the CEO of the Red Cross. We had meetings with environmental health and with animal services and social services, and bringing all our players together, and worked with Rebecca Callan on interagency agreements and those kinds of things. Why was that important? Because we became a template, right, for other fairgrounds. And in 2017, at one time, 18 fairgrounds were deployed. So we were sharing our information. We had done presentations at managers' conferences. We have contracts and other things that we can give state agencies and give the governor's office. So for the next set of folks, it's not as hard as it was for us. We continue with that response plan. In December, we met with Will Downs and walked the facility and had animal services there, and our folks who, in the case of another disaster, would be evacuating animals. And so these are the things we continue to do to build. And because of this, the governor's attitude has changed a little bit in his administration, because he's looking at us now more than a fair. He's looking at us as a really a tool that the state needs, and we're looked at fairgrounds now. And I have to say that during our experience, the governor's office was really great. They called constantly, seeing how we were, very engaged, very involved. So something good came out of something that wasn't so great, and we were able to share the information that we gleaned by working with all of our partners. So in 2015, our last economic data, the fair generated $7.7 million in spending activity. That's a lot of money. So as I like to say, the frog is an economic engine. You know, if you're from Calaveras, you see frogs here, frogs there, frogs everywhere. There's a reason for that. It's because that's what we're known for. Which brings us to Vision 2020. Vision 2020 is our strategic planning group that is meant to get some things done, some improvements that would benefit the facility done by the year 2020. And what's different about this group, and it was really developed by Bob Trincaro, one of our board of directors, is it has some fair people, but it has a lot of just community partners. CAL FIRE, Dignity Health, the Chamber, the City of Angels Camp, the Sheriff, Supervisor Garamendi, Friends of the Fair, the Visitors Bureau, Cal Waste, the State Senate and Assembly, Ironstone Vineyards, of course, Tim Follendorf, and then some of our Fair Committee people, our JLC, our Frog Jump. So the idea of this was to bring folks together who were stakeholders, who could see the big picture beyond the fair, and where are we going, what can we do, how can we fund it. So we have identified some future projects, and they would have to be based on three things: the revenue generation and return on investment, the aesthetic value, and if it was an improvement to the infrastructure. And then we need to acquire funding, grants, Friends of the Fair, the state. Our future projects include our ranch house meeting room, heating and air for Mark Twain Hall, a wall treatment for Mark Twain Hall, outdoor kitchen areas at Becky Thatcher Hall and the Cattleman's area. And long term, we need to do something about our roads and improve our sewer system. So what some of you might not know, after the Butte fire, our infrastructure was old, and after that impact for so many days, we lost the entire underground high voltage system. It was like the next day. And our sewer, we had issues with our sewer system. So those are things that we're looking at grants. We're working with the City of Angels. We are your facility. If something goes wrong, we're going to have to go. We're really the only place you can go. So we feel the state, the city, and the county need to work together to improve our infrastructure, to make sure that we have all the pieces in place so when something does happen, we don't have a sewer system that fails. We don't lose our power system. The interesting thing about the fairgrounds is the 39th District owns the, which is the state of California, but they own the power, they own they own the sewer. I didn't know I needed to be a sewer manager. That's something completely different. We have our own sewer holding pond at the fairgrounds. We actually now have a contract with the City of Angels to manage that for us. We own all the underground water. So, if the power goes out, I can't call PG&E. They're like, yeah, you own it. Great, awesome. So we are working through and learning all the time. The property was put together in pieces. It was piecemealed. So, they bought the Stickle Ranch, and then, a piece from Rolari's, and then a piece from Arola's, and all of that. And there's no as-builts. So, as we find a water line, and you can probably guess how we find them, they either explode from the ground or we're digging somewhere, we map it, because we're trying to build as-builts as we can. Our present and our future, Bob Trincaro said to me once, he said, we're only really stewards of both the facility and the event. It doesn't belong to me, and it doesn't belong to our board of directors. It belongs to the county and to the citizens of Calaveras County, and it has since 1893. And that's a pretty long legacy. And there's a huge responsibility with that. In 2017, we were able to invest in the facility and make significant repairs. Between the DAA and the Friends of the Fair, we invested over $100,000 into the fairgrounds last year. And some of it was planned, some of it was unplanned, because things break. It's an old facility. Our junior livestock auction topped $675,000. That all goes back to the youth of our community. For a community our size and a fair our size, that's huge. Our fair attendance was 39,428, and we're hoping to get that to 40,000. Now we have a small year-round staff, which is awesome. We hosted many new events at the fairgrounds, and the Fair and the Friends of the Fair are working hard on the facility. We ended the year 2017 with a 16.6 reserve, which includes depreciation and our pension liability expense. So, like the county, we're responsible for pension liability, and we have to report that in our financials. So where are we in 2018? We're going frog wild. It's a crazy, crazy logo, but I love it. Our fair dates are May 17th through the 20th. And public safety has really been something that we're working really hard with. What we did in January is we brought in all of our law enforcement partners, the CHP, the sheriff, and also the City of Angels Camp. And we went through our whole facility and tried to figure out, okay, where are we vulnerable? I mean, it's a different day. And so between those three agencies, they made some recommendations for some changes that we will be making at the facility to increase our public safety. And also we're going through some training with the sheriff in the City of Angels in April. It's called Alice Training, and it's so that if we had an act of terrorism or something like that, that the facility plan will meet with the sheriff's plan, and we're all on the same page. So we've been working really hard on that, and we appreciate our community partners have been helping us with that. It's huge. And and then we will also be doing a walkthrough with our SWAT team, because it's just really important to us to be prepared and not paranoid, but just be prepared. And so I really want to, again, on behalf of our board, thank our law enforcement partners who are really coming alongside us and saying, okay, you know, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to train you. And, you know, these are the things where you're vulnerable. So it's also the 90th anniversary of the modern day frog jump. So we're going to be having a birthday party on Kids Day. Cupcakes, you know, party favors. It's going to be a lot of fun. And our tickets are on sale right now at frogtown.org. So let's go to myths. I always like to do this because it's just kind of fun. Are we funded by tax dollars? No, we're not. We were created as a district, and when I read all the old minutes, and Bob Trincaro's read them with me, and one of our directors, it sounds like we were supposed to be like a fire district in the beginning. And somehow we got morphed into a state agency, which was, I guess, okay, except for there was never really a funding mechanism. So in the 30s, we started getting funded by horse racing a little bit. And then in 1989, they started receiving revenue on taxes from satellite wagering. We were always partially funded. We were never completely funded. 2009, we were funded out of the general fund, again, just a very small portion. 2011, our funding was cut completely. In 2019, there was just a bill passed in the last legislative session that we will be partially funded on gross sales gross sales generated at fairgrounds. Doesn't sound like it'd be much, right? But some fairgrounds have commercial entities on them, like Lowe's. That all counts. And it's the whole entire fair system. It's just not, you know, the little fairs or the big fairs. It's everybody's sales tax. Then it'll be allocated to fairs by size. So that's how funding is looking going forward. Biker gangs frequent the fair. No, haven't seen them. Been here 20 years. We do have some bikes, and we've never had any activity. Although there's a great motorcycle shop in Murphy's that has a fabulous shirt every year. So we don't have gangs, but we have a shirt. And they're a wonderful partner for us. The red-legged frog was in Twain's story. Well, Mark Twain's story is a work of fiction, although local legend says that he overheard it in Ross Coon's Tavern in Angels Camp. I did some research and called the Mark Twain Institute, and they said they think that he ripped it off from Greek mythology. So, but it really is a fictional story. So to pinpoint that it was any type of frog to me is the same as saying that the breadcrumbs that Hansel and Gretel dropped were rye and not French. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So there is really we don't have any data that supports that claim. We eat frog legs after the jump. No, we don't. And this is a quote that Ray Callahan, who's passed away now, he was a fair manager for 20 years at the fairgrounds. He said, "We don't bite the leg that feeds us," which I think is really funny. But, and questions? Any questions for me? Any questions? No.
Any board questions? Supervisor Mills.
I've seen your presentation before, and I already asked the questions, so I don't need to do it again. Thank you.
Supervisor Olivero, are your lights on?
Question. So, fair is still run by the state fair board, although they don't provide funding, right?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
The fair, is it still run by the state fair board, or is that governing body completely removed?
The question is the fair still ran by the state?
Or governed by the state?
Governed by, yes. I work for a board of directors that is appointed by the state.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And is it a taxable entity?
Our vendors pay where's Leslie when I need her? Possessor interest tax. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Someone help me out here. Mm-hmm. Possessor, wow. Anyway, so Leslie knows.
Mike,
the assessor
the basis for asking that question, if you make $7.7 million, do you have to pay state tax or federal tax on it?
No, that's trickle out spending activity.
Do you have to pay state tax or federal tax on your earnings?
No, we're a state agency.
Okay, so you're state exempt. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But our vendors pay tax to the county.
All right.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Lori, thank you, as always, coming presenting here. And you do just an amazing job at the fair. And Friends of the Fair, the things that they've been able to accomplish along with your board, it's spectacular. I remember talking with you in 2011.
Yeah.
And it was pretty scary. And I truly wish I had more time to give on the 2020 project, which is really great. I think your point you made about us all being stewards of the fair is really germane. I mean, generations before and generations after, I hope we'll enjoy our hokey fair, but that we truly love. But I think as a county, we need to start thinking, and I wish Michelle was still here, our new OAS director, because we really do need to harden the infrastructure of that. That is a great place to go have fun, but when it hits the fan, that's where we need to have the infrastructure, the sewer repairs, the power upgrades, all the things that are going to make that our bunker. Mm-hmm. We need to have in this community. And I hope that this board and we seek out grants, we find ways to fund it and really harden that, because it's not a question of if, but when we have another disaster. Mm-hmm. And we will all be at the fairgrounds and hoping that the sewer system's working and we don't end up being the people who only think about leaks in their roof when it's raining.
Yes.
So thank you for all the work you do. And I think we have a role to play in trying to help and partner the fairgrounds harden their infrastructure too. Thank you.
I echo Supervisor Garamendi's thoughts and statements. Lori, you do a great job out there.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, all that you do. People don't realize everything that you do, but you're involved in a lot. You're involved in fire recovery, so you take on a lot of hats, and I appreciate everything you do.
Well, thank you. And I get a lot of credit for what my community does, so I say that humbly. I'm very blessed to be in the position I am, but I live in an amazing community, and we have amazing community partners.
So with that, I'll open up for public comments.
Lori, thank you for so much. I was on the CADS team when we met in December. We are using the fairgrounds, large animal, llamas, whatever it is. We are going to go see Lori. Lori is going to be the arranger and the caretaker of these animals for our community. We need to make sure that she is supported, because she's done amazing things. And CADS wants to be partnering with her, and so we need our OES director, our new Michelle, needs to be with her. What you said, Jack, she bends over backwards and she does whatever she can with the little bit of money that she gets. She can stretch a penny 10 ways from Sunday. This woman can make a budget amazing. I wish I could live in her shoes. She can stretch that dollar. She will borrow from here and stretch it, not borrow it, but stretch it to here. This woman is an asset to our community, and I really want to thank you very much, and I applaud you.
Thank you very much. That was nice.
Good morning, Stacy Johnston, Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce. I've had the pleasure of working with Lori now for 3.5 years on many levels, and I cannot say enough about her heart, her passion for this county, for this community, for the communities that she serves. She has an amazing sense of leadership and an amazing staff and board that works with her. The Chamber recognizes the substantial economic impact that the fair has on our county, and in recognizing that, felt that it was important that we become involved on a different level with the fairgrounds. And so we've taken on the welcome booth at the fair, something that we're very proud of. It's very interesting, but we embrace it with a smile for 4 days. We see the vision of the fairgrounds and making Calaveras County a great place to live, work, do business, visit, and we also share in the heart of community. And it's vitally important that we join together in whatever ways we can to make our fairgrounds substantial in the event of disasters, because they will hit. They did. We saw exactly what happened during the Butte fire, and it was by the grace of God that she and her team pulled it off, and they did in an amazing fashion. I'm extremely proud to be a citizen of Calaveras County and know that we have somebody in a place of leadership within our fairgrounds that not only talks the talk, but she walks the walk. So again, on behalf of myself as a citizen of Calaveras County, and I know I speak for the board of the Chamber, Lori, thank you, and thank you for your team for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Nick Valente, I'm here for AMA for a future agenda item. But I just want to say, on behalf of AMA and the Calaveras County Cattlemen's, Lori's a great asset at the fair. And with Cattlemen's and AMA, we work with her on different events. And she's just a great hoster of events at the fair. I just wanted to say that while I'm here.
Hi, Cliff Edson, San Andreas, and I also want to give Lori kudos. There's not a whole lot of people that could do what she does. She's taken an entity that doesn't have any funding, and she makes it work year after year. It's amazing. During the Butte fire, she was thrown a curve and handled it perfectly. So, people moving in, people moving out, animals moving in, animals moving out. It was a pretty wild ride, I'm sure. We were all involved in it, but Lori and Supervisor Ponte at the time took the bull by the horns up there at the Calaveras County Fairgrounds and made it possible for, you had what, over 400 evacuees, and
We had over 400 animals, 300 people, 4,500 firefighters, 250 National Guardsmen, plus volunteers.
there you go. So that to me is a very good argument for us finding a way to support that entity. It needs money to be able to. The next one is going to have a huge effect on already an infrastructure that is crumbling. So it was interesting that you said the fair was basically started in 1893. That's the year my house was built. And let me tell you, it is no easy task to keep it in good working order. I can only imagine what a whole fairground would be. So I think it's really important for us to consider that. I think, you would think the OES in the state would have some kind of funding for these evacuation areas, especially considering how big it is, where it is, and how much it was used already. The other thing that I know the fair is really, really great and important. I love it to death. The one thing that I love even, I think more, or maybe as much, is Ag Day. That is the best event I ever been to, and you couldn't do it anywhere else except for at the fairgrounds, and that is so important for our youth today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public
Possessory
comment?
interest tax, Supervisor Oliveira. Possessory interest tax is what our vendors pay.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments, bring it back to the board. This is an informational item. Thank you, Lori, so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
And we will
Any other parting comments by the board?
Lori, you're aware that our chair has challenged the mayor of San Andreas
Yes.
to a
Yes,
jump
we
out.
have. Yes, we have. I have her on video, and he just told me his is part of. And then I don't know if you know that our sheriff has challenged the police chief at Angels Camp also.
Well, we'll have
So
to make sure
it's on.
they get to supply their own frogs, right? So
Yeah.
we could bring a ringer if we need
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Expect to win, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'm looking
Talk
for
to
one
the
from the
assessor. She knows a lot about
Ranch,
frogs.
Oh, they're kind of cold now, but we'll find you one.
Yes.
Okay.
So we will be here at your, I believe it's May 8th, May 9th, meet to jump frogs.
We're going to do it here, we're not going to do it on the big stage?
No, we're going to have your government center
We'll have the
frog
government
jump.
center, yearly government center. We'll be doing the big stage for the
Yes,
the
uh-huh.
yes.
Carrying it, all right.
Yes. So, thank you, and thank you so much.
Chair,
Thank you, Lori.
before she goes,
Yes.
one of the things too, you brought up an interesting point, and that is that the coordination with OES and how do we facilitate turning your facility into an emergency shelter area, and how can we work from our side to help you with that? It might be grant funding, but it might be from other sources as well. So thank you that we have an OES coordinator that can now work with you on that. And I would like to see something like that come back to the board for some discussion, maybe some additional support if it's needed.
Thank you, and we would welcome that, and again, because fairgrounds were utilized so heavily in this last fire season, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services is really looking at fairgrounds. I have a really good friend who runs May Dixon Fair, and she became a hospital for mentally ill folks that had to be evacuated out of the Napa area. Yeah. So one day you're judging jam, and the next day you're in a hospital, so it was really interesting. So we're really looking forward to some collaborative work between the county and the fairgrounds, and also the City of Angels. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break
you.
to get everything cleared up. So we are back. Madam Clerk, item number 11.
Item 11 is from the Planning Department to make a finding of public benefit and approve a fee waiver requested by the Murphy's Community Club for a special event permit for the Mutt March and Mutt Minster Dog Show.
Good morning, Peter Maurer, Planning Director. I'm not necessarily advocating one way or the other for this, just presenting it to you. We do not have a policy in the county regarding fee waivers, so any waiver of fees must come to the Board of Supervisors. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Supervisor Oliveira, your light is on.
I would like to speak to this issue, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Maurer, thank you for presenting it. Ladies and gentlemen, this was actually presented through the Murphy's Community Club out of Murphy's, which I actually attend those meetings along with the Murphy's Business Association. But I have to be kind of upfront here. This is kind of a personal thing for me. Being a dog lover and having my wife sharing that same love, and having most recently lost one of our dogs overnight in 19-degree weather. And fortunately at 8:30 in the morning, that dog was located at a neighbor's, so I'm pretty grateful. I told you that story to tell you this story. In Murphy's, they're looking at trying to put together what they're calling a dog park, an area where you can take your dogs and have them socialize, an area that can be maintained, and an area that we can bring the community together. We're talking a $100 fee here. I understand that, but the benefit is join the continual support of all activities in the Murphys area. We all know what the Murphys area is. It's a jewel of District 3. I'll be quite honest with you. They're very efficient in what they do, and that's how come, because they have projects like this. So I am totally behind this, and I recommend that our board members participate in this community project, and it does benefit the community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Clapp, your light's on.
My little dog Zoe and myself will be supporting this too.
Okay. Any other board comments?
So does that mean if you're not a dog lover?
If you're a cat lover?
Yeah, where's the cat show?
You know, I think my dog might be offended by being called a mutt, but this doesn't seem like a very seditious activity, so I think we ought to move forward with it.
I too will be supporting this item. I've had over the years several dogs, and most of all my dogs, as a matter of fact, have been rescue dogs. And I have two at home now, a large lab and a small little mixed terrier type dog, and love them to death. So I will go to public comments at this time. We have any public comments?
We're not going to get into the show photo of your dog thing, right?
No, we're not.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. Boy, emotionally, I really agree with this whole concept. I'll tell you a short story about a blind, happy poodle. It's an amazing dog. I was in a group of people who, about 20 of them, and in the home was a blind, happy poodle. This poodle would run around, and he only run into a chair if it had been moved. It had mapped everything out. And it was just like a bundle of rubber bands. He'd run around looking for human beings to cuddle him. And he, even though he couldn't see, somehow he sensed where your hand was so he could lick it. And so when I think about problems I have, I think about this happy blind poodle. You couldn't have a worse situation in your life, but to be happy means that it's not your condition, it's your attitude. In the case of the $100, the only thing that really amounts here is principle. If nonprofits, if it's board policy that nonprofits would have their fees waived, then it probably should be uniform. Otherwise, you'd be kind of saying, okay, well, this one will waive a fee, this one won't. So you'll need to, this is a precedent. And if that's to be the precedent, well, that should be clear and need sunshine on it. So, because there's a lot of nonprofits out there that would appreciate having fees waived. Thank you.
I just have a real quick question. What is the fee, and what is the money for that to be raised to be donated to this park that you're talking about?
The fee that's requested to be waived is the $100 special events fee, and the Murphys Community Club would need to speak more about how that money would be spent for the money that's raised. But I believe that they're wanting to develop a dog park in Murphys.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. We have a motion.
I move it.
I will second.
A motion by Supervisor Clapp, a second by Supervisor Oliveira. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, moving on to item number 12.
Item 12 is from the Planning Department to make a finding of public benefit and approve a fee waiver requested by the Angels Murphys Arnold Boosters Club for for a zoning amendment application for expansion of Capello Park.
Good morning again. This is a similar request. However, this is for a zone change application. The AMA boosters are wanting to expand Capello Park. It's actually in the county, not within the city of Angels Camp, right on the border. The fee that's being requested to be waived is the rezone fee, which includes fees for planning, public works, and environmental management. The total is $5,466. Again, it's really a policy decision of the board whether or not to waive fees. I have some concern at a fee of that amount. The work has to be done. The taxpayers end up having to pay for it. But again, I understand the desire to assist nonprofit organizations in trying to expand the services within the county. Any questions?
Any questions by the board?
Peter, who holds the title to the property?
I believe it's the boosters.
Thank you.
Supervisor Oliveira?
Mr. Mauer, just for the benefit of the public and probably the board, exactly what is the Boosters Club? What do they do and what do they benefit as far as the community?
Well, I know there is a representative of the Boosters Club here, and he could probably provide you a much better explanation of that than I could.
Oh, that would be great if someone's here. Excellent.
I'm Nick Valente, and I'm on the board of directors. I am the director of youth football for the Boosters Club. So fire away if you have any questions, or I can fill in where you're lost at. I'm sorry.
Your Boosters Club, I'm familiar with your crab feed. That was a great event.
Yeah. I don't know if there was I don't know if it was provided, but we're a youth organization, nonprofit that's been around since 1971, providing youth sports for basically the Highway 4 corridor, Angels Murphy. We expand to Copper. It's not included in the name, but we provide youth football, youth flag football now, youth softball like a ponytail league, youth basketball. We host tournaments for Valley Springs, a lot of elementary and middle school basketball tournaments. I think there's 2 throughout the year. We have fundraising events like the crab feed. We provide the parking, people to park the fair all 4 days and or other special events of the fair if requested. It's another part of our fundraising. We have volleyball. We provide a lot to the community, and we're just think expanding the park that we hold the title to would be a great asset to the community.
Do you have any paid positions in your organization, sir?
We have like an executive secretary that just basically just takes notes and does paperwork filing and the day-to-day stuff that us as volunteer directors don't have to deal with.
Okay. So basically it's an all-volunteer organization other than
Totally.
the administrative needs of a secretary?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been involved in this?
Myself?
Yes, sir.
2.5 years. I was the one that was basically had to come represent today because everyone else had more dire obligations than I did, I guess. So
I can understand.
Because I'm a self-employed rancher, and I have kids in the organization myself, and I just said I'll go and do it because I can set my own schedule.
What's happened to our youth sports programs in our schools?
In
I
our
understand
schools?
the budgeting has been removed. In order to participate in this program, there's now a very high cost financially for the individual students. Those schools that do have sports programs. And I'm familiar with the problems that Calaveras has, Calaveras High and Bret Harte High, working closely in other areas as far as continuing technical education. $5,000 is a lot of money.
Correct.
But I look at it as investments. I don't want to take away your thunder, but I believe in investing in our youth. We get paid back by contributing to the society. I would look at this, Mr. Chairman, as one of those investments. Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Mills.
Well, additionally, I had the good fortune when there was league softball playing at Capello Park. So it's not just for youth. There was juniors, and this is an opportunity to bring our young people out into an event or an activity that is separated from the school system. And how well you folks have maintained it over the years with just volunteers, with what you've done. And the property expansion is really not an expansion of the park. It's basically an expansion of parking, from what I understand. That's what you're trying to get done here.
There's going to be, the true end result's not going to be, we haven't determined yet, but it's going to be more practice fields.
Okay.
You know, open to the public. It's going to be possibility of the building of like a gymnasium to incorporate all youth activities in the community. That could be, you know, used by schools to host more tournaments, training centers, whatever it could be. It could be a multi-purpose building. Our youth basketball program is kind of, we run it through the high school. It's on Saturdays. It's a couple months out of the year. But the high school is very, very overutilized for sports outside of the high school. You know, we get to use it on Saturdays for youth football. We're done with football, soccer comes on and plays. And that's a different org, that's Evans Path, you know, soccer league. Softball uses it sometimes. Swimming's, I mean, we don't have to build a swimming pool, but it's just going to be another great facility, I think, within the community. That's going to be, you know, between San Andres and Angels. We're not going to discriminate against people on this side of the bridge, although that is part of our rivalry. But it's just going to be another place, another practice field, another place for more youth to have places to go, like it is now.
And you're all volunteer. You're
all volunteer.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Any other board comments, questions? If not, open public comments.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. If having limited government is really wise, then operations like this really make sense. When people can satisfy the needs of the community voluntarily and without resorting to the taxpayers or even the sheriff or any government to create something, it's really amazing. And it's not just Feenley Park that we see this kind of activity. It's all over our county, and it should be encouraged. And here we go back to the same question we had last time. Of course, the precedent was set. So that same precedent would hold here, that the county shouldn't be charging fees to a nonprofit. Thank you.
I think $5,000 is a lot of money. I know when the Women's Crisis Center was being built, we applied for waivers everywhere we could because the benefit of having our project was that the community was going to end up being the recipients in the end. So I support seeing these kinds of fees waived for these kinds of programs rather than like what we saw with Olive Orchard when the developer got let off the hook because he was going to make money somehow. These guys aren't out to make money, so I think this is a good investment in our community. Thank you.
Being a parent of a 12-year-old, she goes and does AMA sports. The coaches are volunteer. The program is wonderful. They're honestly in it for the right reasons. I think this $5,000 is a true investment in our children, and I think this should be done. They should be waived. They're a wonderful, wonderful program.
Hi, Cliff Edson. Being a part of many nonprofits over the years, it is very difficult for them to raise enough money to keep the facilities up to the standard that we feel that our children could benefit from the most. And even a special district like the one in here in San Andreas has problems with funding. So you know, this is something that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that say, hey, there's nothing for my kids to do, nothing for my kids to do around here. These folks are giving something for kids to do, and adults, anybody. So it's a benefit for the county. The county doesn't really have any parks district. There's only one district in the county, and that's the San Andreas Recreation and Parks District. So for these folks to take this on like they have, and I've seen that park, they do a fantastic job there. And they're going to do a fantastic job on expanding it. And they have some really good leadership there, obviously. So I'm for this. This is a payback that'll come to us many times over the years. Thanks.
Ben Stopper, District 5. As a member of a nonprofit Parks and Recs group, we also support this. Even being on the other side of the bridge, we welcome the opportunity to go over and play some good hardball. Our kids appreciate it.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
I would second it.
I have a motion by Supervisor Oliveira, second by Supervisor Mills. Any other discussion? Not, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've now had 3 such waivers in the last 2 weeks, and we've also had approved others in the past. I would like, if the board sort of consents to this, to bring back a policy change that basically, rather than spend our time debating whether or not it can be waived, we could consider just having that as part of our fee resolution for certain types of activities. We can get more into that, but I just want to see if that's something you'd like me to bring back to you to modify our fee schedule for
We'll hold the board on that. Supervisor Clapp?
I'd be for that.
Supervisor Mills?
Yes.
Oliveira?
I would be for that, but to put in parameters
we can
as
have that
to
discussion.
project specific.
Supervisor Garamendi?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, so am I.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, item number 13.
Item 13 is from the Administrative Office to receive a tree mortality program implementation update from TSS Consultants.
Hi there, Tim Lutz. Just wanted to introduce Tad Mason, our TSS the owner, manager, whatever you want to, Forester, who's going to be providing the presentation to the board today.
Good morning. This is the February update, basically on our progress implementing the tree mortality program. We're under contract with the county as project manager. We've been under contract since November. So I'll be reporting in monthly. This is, again, February's report. We did complete the field survey for the entire county, looking at tree mortality throughout the county. And with that data, we've been able to map out boundaries for logical project areas, basically tied to hazardous conditions in residential areas. That's our first focus. So right now we're working in the Arnold Big Trees area, considering the concentration of mortality that we have found, basically. So our first project is a small project. This is basically our pilot. We're looking at 30 parcels in the Pine Brook area with a total of 40 trees to be removed. We worked closely with county admin staff to put together an invitation to bid, which went out yesterday. We're expecting proposals from tree service companies, hopefully local tree service companies, and licensed timber operators by mid-March. Once the proposals are in, the county will review and pick a preferred contractor, and we hope to implement by starting to drop and remove trees by mid-April. So that's the schedule on the first project. A key part of this process is to issue right of entry forms to targeted parcels where we know there's mortality. We've issued to date 933 ROEs. We received back a little over 200. So this is an ongoing process. And a key to success here to getting a response is outreach. So we have a very, very structured outreach program in the county. For example, yesterday we posted a banner at Cedar Center. There's basically ability to post a banner over the roadway. And we also have an updated website. We have issued a press release, actually a couple of them. And so there's a lot of outreach that is going on. A key part to that outreach, believe it or not, is the HOAs. Each one of these HOAs has a newsletter, and so we're in contact with the editors of the various newsletters to include an announcement regarding the right of entry forms and to provide a flyer as needed if the HOAs are willing to send out the flyer with the newsletter. We're also posting up that flyer throughout the greater Arnold Big Trees area, convenience stores, public bulletin boards, things like that. We presented at the Ebbets Pass Property Owners Association on February 7th, which is a gathering of HOA management groups, and so they are very much aware of this process. I will say that our work in putting together these projects, a key part of this is coordinating with the IT and GIS staff. I will say that Mr. Moore's staff has been very helpful in pulling that together. A key part of efficiently putting together projects is mapping of location of tree mortality. So I wanted to mention that. Also under our purview is now the air curtain, the CAL FIRE air curtain burners at Red Hill. And those were operated for a couple of days 2 weeks ago. Now that we're outside of fire season, CAL FIRE is managing those air curtain burners, and so we've stepped away, letting CAL FIRE take that over. I will be candid with you. The projects we're working on with tree mortality removal, basically, we're not going to generate a lot of slash that will go into those air burners. Most of the material that we're generating will be chipped and removed and either taken for mulch or soil amendment or down to one of the power plants for power generation. So as far as the ongoing use of the air curtains for our project, it isn't critical. I'll put it that way. So let's see. Any questions so far?
Supervisor Oliver.
Thank you. There you go. Thank you very much for that information. I have great concern about the right of entry forms and their return. Is there a limited date that they have to be returned by? You have 900 plus out and a return of 200.
Right.
That concerns me.
Great question. In our cover letter, in our correspondence with the property owners, we asked for a 10-day turnaround. And we even facilitate turnaround by email. So there's a digital version of the ROE form. So we're doing all we can to facilitate that. We're still early in the process. Ultimately, we may end up issuing upwards of 5,000 to 6,000 ROEs. I mean, it's just an ongoing process. We have a PO box right now where we're receiving them back, and as we receive them, we enter them into the database that is, again, maintained by the IT team here at the county. So it's going to be an ongoing process. We'll probably issue some more press releases and outreach to the media and ongoing efforts with the HOAs. Okay. So, but you're right, Supervisor.
What happens in the case where you do not get an ROE?
In that case, we don't enter that property.
And the liability reverts back to that property owner?
Yes, and we've made that clear in our correspondence with them.
And these are county right-of-way tree removal programs for tree mortality, correct?
Yes, well, basically, we're focusing on private and public property adjacent to county road systems and parks. Any tree that might impact that roadway for public safety reasons is removed, yes.
Well, as a benefit to you, it sounds like you're doing all you can to reach those folks that need to return these ROE forms. Unfortunately, the situation is like in Blue Lake Springs, where they have approximately 73% absentee owner, if you will.
Right.
Getting the word to those folks who own those second homes through the homeowner association is probably the best way you can get in touch with those folks. And I'm saying this because I need to know that the folks out there watching us get this information. It's imperative that we get these ROEs back, because we cannot come back in different phases in the same areas. When we move equipment in there, when we have RFPs, when we put together schedules, we have to meet those schedules. And right now, in my opinion, and I may be wrong, we're dependent on those ROEs being returned and giving us permission to go on your property. So if you need to get that done, you get it back to these folks so they can do their job. Thank you.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you, Tad, for the report. You said we have our contracts just went out the door to go for our bids. RFPs went out. How do we calculate, as you and I have discussed many times, it's important that we build our infrastructure, our capacity to manage this ourselves. So local hire is very important. What preference, in our point system, do we come up with an amount of points for local hire, local firms, so they could get this work?
Good question. In the ITB invitation to bid announcement, there is provision for local preference, and basically I believe it's an assignment of 3% point-based system for local contractors.
Are we limited by some statute as to how much preference points we could give?
That is beyond my
How do we come up with 3%?
It was a canned paragraph that we inserted.
Because usually I see these things at a higher pointed, so there's got to be a reason we didn't lowball our locals, I'm sure.
No, and usually my staff would have been monitoring to pop over, but with audio and video, Bonnie might not be listening. I know when we were setting it up, we certainly tried to provide the most flexibility and benefit to locals. I'll be honest, I don't know the exact criteria for why we came up with that percentage. I can get back to you and let you know.
I would like that, because I think we don't want to end up getting a bad contractor because of a point advantage or disadvantage, but at the same time we want our local people to do it. And I know that when we did our initial contracts after the Butte fire, the big guys sometimes have angles that the little guys can't take advantage of. I know we had issues around prevailing wage and other things, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen again, and that this job, especially when we're starting with the smaller ones and building up, allows us to train people, get them in this field, because we're going to have a lot more trees in the future. It'd be a lot easier if we weren't importing all our labor from Florida and Tennessee to cut these trees. And I understand that it's a tight market with what's going on the coasts.
Good point.
I've got one other thing I'd like to ask, and this is a little bit off the tree mortality, but it has to do with trees. We have about 1,000 trees on BLM property and about 2,000 that were post-Butte fire green mark trees that we haven't gotten approval yet from Cal OES to take down, or BLM to enter onto their property. These are huge liabilities, and they are the tops. The widowmakers are dropping off and coming down near the roads. They're going to fall and they're going to kill somebody. And we've already put our name that we know that these are a public health risk. So if you could work with administration to find ways that we could drop these, and this board needs to take as a risk mitigation issue, how we're going to pay to get these down before someone gets killed, and then seek reimbursement from the state or PG&E. But we cannot kick this can down the road, or someone's going to die and we're going to be responsible because we didn't do anything. So I just hope that with some of the work that you're doing, you could work with our CAO, and we could sit in front of this board and say, here's how we're going to deal with this, because I've asked Public Works for, well, certainly before and since I've been on here, and there's always an excuse, and we got to stop dealing with excuses, and we got to drop these trees. And so I hope that this board will take that up, and I hope you guys will have a chance to talk, because I've been sitting up here for 14 months, and I've heard nothing but the same excuses, and now people's lives are at risk. We have to deal with this. That's not critical of you. I hope I'm given direction.
Good point, Supervisor. To that end, I did meet with the CAO, Public Works, OES last Wednesday, and we went through the BLM hazard tree issue. A request was made of me for a scope of work to address and mitigate those hazards. I submitted that scope of work yesterday, and I believe it's being reviewed right now by Public Works and the CAO.
I would like to ask that you guys, as you continue these conversations, take on the green sea trees as well, because part of the segmentation is part of the reason we haven't gotten this work done. And we need to get this work done.
I see Bonnie here.
Just say, Bonnie came into the audience to hopefully answer a question on the local preference points. And with the audio not working, Bonnie, you might not have heard the question.
I did not.
Bonnie,
Good
my
morning.
question is, we gave 3% points for local hire preference. How do we come up with 3%?
That is currently how the ordinance is written, to allow a 3% local vendor preference for when evaluating costs for the purchase of goods and services.
Do we have any flexibility to make that, to increase those points? We do?
We would have to amend the ordinance and go through that process, but yes.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that we increase our local economic activity. And so maybe as we look at future contracts, we consider that.
Absolutely.
The board can consider that.
Okay.
Supervisor Mills?
Yes, thank you. I think this is really pointing to the fact that we need to revitalize the timber industry, not only in Calaveras County, but all of the foothill counties. This is something that's kind of slipped into the background over time, and I talked to SBI about it. They're having trouble finding foresters. They're even having trouble finding truck drivers. And so they have logging trucks that are sitting idle, and now they're talking about the turnaround time, and is it makes sense for us to drive this far? And looking at what they just did up in the state of Washington, putting in a new stud mill up there as a way of reducing turnaround time is going to be an ongoing challenge. I mean, I'm going to be talking to them and possibly looking at an option here of how do we generate more foresters? How do we generate more people in this industry to work it? Because last year, in a wet year, we had 1 million trees go down. And now we're going to another dry year. Is it going to be 1 million, or is it going to be way more than that? And at what point, we're not talking about sustaining, it's just a flood that's just coming at us, and without personnel and without equipment to do it, even your job is going to be just insurmountably difficult to handle it. So in terms of fronting costs, I think that's something this board needs to talk about, is that are we willing to go out there and put $500,000 or whatever towards this and get this thing moved up in terms of the time, and stop discussing or arguing over who's going to do it when and who's going to pay for it. If this is a health and safety issue, then we need to move it into that category. It's health and safety, and we just need to move forward and get those costs fronted. So I'm going to work real hard on trying to find us personnel, trying to find ways to revitalize this industry in this county. That is part of my family heritage. So I'm not going to give up on it, but I think that the tree issue, and the more we realize just how much is going to be coming out of there, this is not a 1 or 2 or 5 year project. SPI is looking at this as being a 60-year project. I mean, that ought to be an eye-opener for a lot of people. There is more material out there than we have any capacity to want to begin to pull it out, and the result is like Congressman McClintock said, you're going to get it out of there one way or the other. You know, are we going to burn it out? Is that the answer? I hope it's not. So the more proactive we can be right now in reducing that fuel loading, the better chance we have of not repeating a Butte fire or something similar to it in Calaveras County.
Supervisor
Chair.
Oliveira.
Well said. And to support that, and also Supervisor Garamendi's concern with BLM lands, I sit on the board of the Governor's Task Force for Tree Mortality, and also on the local board here for Calaveras County. The issue with BLM land has been an ongoing problem that we've been trying to address on a state level and a federal level through our meetings with the Governor's Task Force. They are making some progress as far as being able to process what needs to be done, but it's not fast enough, as we can see. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm trying to relay back information on a statewide and federal level. To address Supervisor Mills' issues regarding our forest industry, yes, he is absolutely correct, and we want to thank SPI. They actually put a new sawmill in up in Washington. They are addressing that. And ironically, they are in a loss of trees for market. They are looking for logs, but they can't get them to their mills because they don't have foresters, they don't have truck drivers, they don't have people to man those boots on the ground jobs to answer this problem. Folks, there is no easy answer to this, but we are diligently working. We're working on state and federal levels, we're working on local levels, and we're thinking out of the box. And Supervisor Mills, you're right. I hope we can find $500,000 or some kind of money to force this issue to come over and at least get us a start on this journey. We all know what the situation is, but now it's time to dig in, work together, and find solutions for this. And I'm willing to go out of that box and do it, and I think our board will do that also. I think you guys will join me on that.
Do you want to poll the board for an agenda item to have that discussion?
I would offer that, Mr. Chairman, a poll of the board to at least discuss it as an agendized item.
I'll poll the board. Supervisor Clapp.
I'm open for discussion.
Supervisor Mills.
Absolutely.
Oliveira.
Yes, sir.
Garamendi.
Absolutely.
And myself is a yes. So, staff. All right. Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Ted.
See you next month.
Do you have any public
I
comments?
want to see numbers on that report I have to make to the state in April. Okay?
Yes.
Public comments.
House of Gallup Taxpayer Association, congratulations on that last vote. That's a step in the right direction. There may be some silver lining to these dark clouds of repression of our industries, including the timber industry. There's been some significant changes in federal policy. You don't see it in the news media very much, but there's been quite a cutback in the unnecessary regulations and government bureaucracy. At one time, it was hopeless. Our federal government actually worked to destroy our thriving timber industry. We had a thriving timber industry in our county and in the Sierra foothills. And it was destroyed for ideological reasons. They didn't like capitalism. Remember the clear-cutting slogan? Well, maybe now is the time to turn that around a little bit. I think Congressman McClintock is fully aware of what we're talking about here, and it might be possible to go further and really promote revival of our timber industry. When you have a timber industry that's recognized and in place, people will want to join and become part of that. Somebody's not going to go drive a truck just for a couple weeks for some emergency thing with trees. They want to be at a place where they can have a long-term future to raise their kids. And this is the way it was. And this is the way it ought to be again. And we can do it. We need to communicate with our congressmen and anybody else who will listen about reviving our timber industry long-term. The timber industry looks at 80 years for their plans, not 4 years, not 6 years, 80 years. Because these trees grow, it takes 80 years for the trees to get to the point where they can cut them down and make wood. And as far as the trees are going to go, they're either going to be burnt out or cut out. We ought to think about harvesting, and we need to back our congressman about reviving our timber industry long term. Thank you.
Ben Stopper. To follow up on Mr. Segala's bringing up, and all you gentlemen are absolutely right. In the future, we do need a revitalization, and it helps with the forethought for our future in controlling our forests. Also, you need to look at the structure in which the timber industry works within. Maximum board length is what the grow pattern is, what they put down these days, and is part of what perpetuated the problem we're at today. These trees are planted too closely together, so we need a sustainable plan as we move forward in such a future. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hi, Cliff Edson. Well, I guess it's never too late to start. If you look at our forests back in the 1860s, you'll find the natural forest, and it's about 75% overgrown now, which is probably one of the reasons why we have the problems that we're having with the beetle and the bug kill going on. As far as our county goes, it's not just up in District 3 and over we're in District 2, but even close here, you can look around, go up Calvaritas Road. There's widowmakers hanging even in areas that aren't being watched. And and I don't think that any of those property owners are getting any letters saying, hey, they may be absent property owners, but there's trees hanging. They're dead. And it's only going to take a good frost or a good wind or a good rain to bring them down. And whoever's under them is done. Because they aren't little trees, most of these things. They're big trees. The other thing is, for an industry to be successful, you have to have a good product. A lot of these trees, when they're cut too late on the bug kill, they have less value. So, a good portion of them turns not to wood but to pulp. And that's also an issue. So rapidly what's happening is the decline of the value of an asset in which we had 60, 70 years ago is now turning into less value. And people don't want to invest in that, to be honest with you. If a company like SPI or anybody that wants to invest in an operation or a mill, they're going to have at least 10 years of outlook. Or why invest? They're not going to put in $7 to $10 million into something and only to be gone in a couple of years. So long-term investment is key, and that's why it's really important for us to be open to that. Now, I think that there's a lot of fear going on with the way things were done way back when. We've learned a lot since then, and I think that there's a lot of different ways of doing things now to where maybe not so fearful on destroying our environment. So hopefully that people will be able to see that and realize the condition that we're in with tree mortality and the future fires that are going to come from it, because it's going to come, and be more receptive. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. This was an informational item. It wasn't an action item. Is there any other board discussion? I have one item to discuss. We polled the board about bringing back the item on spending money for the tree issue. Bonnie brought up the issue of the ordinance restricting us. I'd like to pull the board on bringing the ordinance back for us to look at and review in the near future. So Supervisor Clapp? Supervisor Mills? Yes. Supervisor Oliveira?
I would affirmatively agree.
Supervisor Garamendi?
Yes.
So that's 5. So we have 5 to bring that ordinance back for us to look at.
We'll bring that. We've been in the process of completely overhauling the purchasing ordinance overall, so good timing to incorporate that piece.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tad. All right. We have about 10 minutes to 12. I'm looking at the clock. The next item is earmarked for about 45 minutes to an hour. So I would like to ask the board whether they would like to go to lunch now and then come back so we don't break the whole thing up. So we're in favor of that. We're going to go to lunch and we're going to come back at about 1:15. We'll resume at 1:15.